The Untouchables, also known as Untouchable, is a 2011 French comedy drama film based on a true story. The plot of the film follows an unusual friendship that develops when Driss, a street-smart immigrant, is hired as a live-in caregiver for Philippe, a quadriplegic French nobleman. Although completely opposite, the two men bond and develop a close friendship. Set in Paris, the film starts with a black, street-smart immigrant named Driss driving a quadriplegic Parisian named Philippe in a luxurious sports sedan at high speed and taking over all the cars in its way. Soon enough, he realizes that he's being chased by a cop car. Driss places a bet with Philippe that if he loses the cop, Philippe will have to pay him 100 euros. Eventually, in the end, he gets cornered by the police when another cop car blocks his way from the front. Before the police could approach him, Driss once again bets Philippe to pay him 200 euros if he gets the police to escort them on. When the officer guns him down, Driss pretends that he was taking Philippe to a hospital as he's experiencing a fit. The officers look inside the car only to find Philippe pretending to have a seizure. Driss warns the fooled officers that they will be responsible for a young girl's father's death, as they are taking longer to get him to the emergency room. Horrified, the officers let him go and also offer to escort them to the hospital. Driss is elated and flaunts his win in front of Philippe, mockingly demanding his 200 euros. The police escort them to the hospital, and after arriving there, they drive away. Driss smokes a cigarette along with Philippe and also leaves before the paramedics team could tend to them. The film then transitions to a flashback and portrays the story of how Driss and Philippe met and became such good friends. Driss is seen waiting for his turn for the interview in a luxurious mansion along with other candidates. Philippe, a quadriplegic Parisian aristocrat, is a wealthy person, and his secretary, Magali, is interviewing potential live-in caregivers for him. However, they are unimpressed by most of the candidates because some seem too good for the job, while others' sole motivation for the job is money. Tired of waiting, Driss storms into Philippe's room with an attitude. When Magali asks him if he has any references, Driss starts taking names of musicians, thinking that the interviewers will be fooled. However, Philippe turns out to be an expert in music and is impressed by Driss's smart sense of humor. Driss then reveals that he has no intention to get hired and is just there to get a signature on a document proving his interview was rejected, to continue with his welfare benefits. Philippe tells Driss that he will get the signed document the next morning. Driss insists to get it signed immediately, but after realizing that Philippe is paralyzed, he agrees to collect the signed document the next day. Driss returns home to his family. He is the eldest son of the family and has a lot of siblings. Soon, his mother returns home and is angry to see him. Driss gives her a Fabergé egg that he stole from Philippe's mansion to calm her down, but to no avail. It turns out that Driss has been away from home for 6 months and hasn't called once to inform his concerned mother about his whereabouts. Enraged by his recklessness, his mother ousts him from the house. Embarrassed, he spends the night with his street friends on a road, smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. In the morning, he takes a subway and returns to Philippe's mansion to collect the signed document. Upon entering, Philippe's assistant Yvonne greets him and shows him around the place. When Driss tells her that he does not have all day, Yvonne replies that she is told to acquaint him with the place. She shows him the quarters, and Driss's jaw drops looking at the spacious and luxurious bathroom. He then enters Philippe's room, where he is being assisted by a couple of nurses. Philippe guides him to the signed document and tells him that he can assign him the job on a month's trial basis. Driss realizes that it is his best shot to accept the job as he has nowhere else to live. He brings his belongings and starts living in the quarters assigned to him by his employer. Despite being impassive and inexperienced, he starts working for Philippe. The extent of his uninterest exceeds when he mistakenly uses a foot cream to wash Philippe's hair. One day when Driss is asked to put on stockings on Philippe, he refuses. However, he is forced to do so as a part of his training. When Philippe's adopted daughter named Alyssa brings a guy home and interacts with him intimately, Driss invades their privacy, pissing Alyssa off. Driss, who himself is into Magali, keeps ogling and flirting with her. Using conventional methods, he starts taking good care of Philippe, except when he tries to massage Philippe's leg with boiling hot tea. In the process of training, Driss learns the extent of Philippe's disability, so he becomes even more helpful to him. Along with doing his job, Driss enjoys his time living a deluxe life. One day, while he's busy relaxing in the bathtub, Yvonne is puzzled to find a knife in his bag but does not take any action about it. That afternoon, Philippe decides to go to a museum. When Driss finds out that he will have to escort Philippe pragmatically in a handicapped vehicle, he refuses and instead drives him in his Maserati. Seeing Philippe fed up with the neighbor for parking in place of his reserved area, Driss violently teaches him a lesson by threatening him using his gangster skills. At the museum, Philippe keeps staring at an expensive painting, wanting to buy it. When Driss finds out that the painting costs 41,000 euros, he persuades Philippe not to waste his money on a painting that looks more like a nosebleed. Philippe does not listen to him and asks him to feed him candy. However, Driss teases him for not having a hand to take the candy. Philippe starts liking Driss as he does not treat him with pity. One day, a friend of Philippe's informs him to be vigilant around Driss and reveals that Driss was imprisoned for 6 months for robbery. However, Philippe does not care about his background and disregards the warnings. He elucidates that Driss is the only one who does not treat him with pity, and that he will not fire him as he is strong and has a street-smart mind. Seeing Philippe write a letter, Driss insists Yvonne enlighten him about the matter. At first, she refuses, but seeing Driss's curiosity, she reveals that Philippe has an epistolary relationship with a woman called Eleanor, who lives in Dunkirk. Driss is mesmerized to discover it. Seeing Yvonne talk about love, he starts teasing her with the gardener, making Yvonne blush. One night, Driss finds Philippe experiencing a panic attack. Driss calms him down and then takes him on a walk by the lake to make him feel better. While dragging Philippe on a wheelchair, Driss questionably asks him about how he manages his love life. Philippe reminds him that he's disabled and feels nothing from his neck to his toes. Being his true self, Driss does not console him but rather burns a cigarette and shares it with him. The two of them go to a diner where Philippe recounts his life story of how he met his wife, Alice. He reveals that he and his wife met in college for the first time and fell in love. Their love kept flourishing after they got married. Desperate to have kids, his wife suffered from 5 miscarriages and then died after getting diagnosed with a terminal illness. He then explains that his disability was from a paragliding accident in which he broke his 3rd and 4th vertebrae. However, he mentions that being in a wheelchair does not make him feel handicapped, but living a life without Alice does. Philippe then informs Driss that his trial period is over and that he is officially hired. Driss is elated to hear it, however, his happiness is short-lived after Philippe asks him to return the Fabergé egg that he stole from his mansion. The Fabergé eggs hold sentimental importance for Philippe as Alice gave him one each year. Driss then starts asking his siblings to help him get the Fabergé egg back. Gradually, Driss helps Philippe to organize his private life. One day, while seeing him narrating a letter from Magali, Driss insists he talks to her by phone. Although Philippe refuses to do so, Driss puts him on the spot, leaving him with no other choice but to talk to Eleanor. Later, Driss takes Philippe to watch the opera where Philippe tells him that Eleanor wants to see a picture of him. Driss advises him to send a picture in which his wheelchair is not evident. The two of them then watch the opera together and Driss does not miss a chance to mock the singers, disturbing the audience. After discovering modern art, Driss starts painting. One day, he gets into a heated argument with Philippe's daughter, Alyssa, who asks him to give her a cigarette. Meanwhile, Philippe agrees to send a photo of himself in a wheelchair to Eleanor, but he hesitates and asks Yvonne to send a picture as he was before his accident. Exacerbated by Alyssa's rebellious attitude, Driss bursts onto Philippe like a volcano, seeking his permission to discipline his disobedient daughter. Then onward, Driss and Philippe start getting along very well. Taking Driss's advice, Philippe straightens Alyssa and criticizes Driss's painting that he made after getting inspired by modern art. They start enjoying their lives to the fullest. For Philippe's birthday, Yvonne arranges a private classical music concert in his living room like every other year where all of Philippe's family is invited. Driss makes an appearance in an all-black suit looking dashing and earning Magali's interest. During the party, Philippe shows one of his associates Driss's paintings and bids to sell it for 11,000 euros. Meanwhile, Driss asks Yvonne about Magali's love life. When Yvonne mentions that Magali is going through a rough patch with her partner, Driss realizes that it was because of him, as he thinks Magali is into him. Philippe then educates Driss on famous classical pieces, but Driss seems uninterested and thinks they are too boring. Feeling the concert is too dull, Driss plays hip-hop music and puts up a dancing show to entertain the guests. Before the day ends, he gives Philippe the letter from Eleanor with her picture and note, asking him to meet her. He encourages Philippe to meet her, and a date between them is agreed upon. Later, Driss and Yvonne spend hours selecting an outfit for Philippe's date, but in the end, Philippe refuses to take Driss along with him. Making use of his free time, Driss goes to see Bastien, Elisa's boyfriend who ditched her after saying nasty things about her. He asks him to man up and apologize to Elisa for whatever he did. Meanwhile, waiting for his date, Philippe gets nervous as he fears Eleanor's reaction when she discovers his disability. He changes his mind at the last minute and calls Driss, asking him to get ready for a flying trip. Without meeting Eleanor, he leaves with Yvonne. Philippe then plans to go on a paragliding weekend in the Alps with Driss on his private jet. On the flight, Philippe hands Driss the 11,000 euros he made after selling his first painting. Driss is ecstatic to receive the amount and mentions that he knew from the start that he made an incredible piece. During the entire flight, Driss feels anxious to be flying with a man who is jinxed and is used to experiencing tragedies. In the Alps, Philippe convinces Driss to paraglide. Although Driss hesitates, in the end, he agrees to fly and enjoys the experience to bits. Upon arriving back in Paris, Driss's younger sibling, Adam, who is involved in some shady stuff with a gang, comes to meet Driss at Philippe's house. Philippe overhears Driss talking to his mother that he can't look after Adam as he has a job to do. When Philippe asks Driss about his family, he reveals a complicated story elucidating that his parents are not his real parents and that they adopted him from their relative when he was 8. So, technically, Adam is his cousin, not brother. Philippe realizes that Driss's family needs him, so he asks him to quit the job, suggesting he may not want to push a wheelchair all his life. Before Driss leaves, Magali reveals that she is a lesbian, hence the reason for her resistance. Driss then bids farewell to Yvonne, who hands him the signed document that he initially wanted. When Driss opens the file, he finds Philippe's photograph and realizes that Philippe never sent his wheelchair photograph to Eleanor. Anyhow, he returns to his family. In the meantime, a new caregiver replaces him, but Philippe does not get along with him. On the other hand, Driss joins his friends and manages to help Adam, using his old eccentric ways. In the absence of Driss, Philippe starts feeling low and he stops taking care of himself. He even grows a beard and looks miserable. Seeing Philippe frustrated, Yvonne calls Driss back. When Driss arrives, he mocks Philippe over his grown beard and takes him for a drive, which brings the story back to the initial police chase. After fooling the police, Driss takes Philippe to the seaside to please his mood. He then shaves his beard before giving his mustache a number of funny looks. After shaving and dressing Philippe, Driss takes him to a fancy restaurant by the seaside. However, suddenly he leaves the table, informing Philippe to behave well on his lunch date. Before leaving, he gives him the Fabergé egg and wishes him good luck. A few minutes later, Eleanor arrives. Philippe feels overwhelmed and looks through the window, seeing Driss smiling at him. The epilogue states that Philippe now lives in Morocco, has remarried, and has 2 young daughters. Abdel Salou, portrayed as Driss, has his own firm, is married, and has 3 children. The film ends with shots of Philippe and Abdel on a hillside and a caption stating that they are still very close friends. This movie has a rating of 8.5 on IMDb. The budget of this movie was around $10.8 million, and at the box office, it earned $426.6 million. I hope you all liked this video. If yes, then make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel for more movie recaps.